الآن يبدأ عرضنا الإثرائي بعنوان المتفائل بمستقبل الذكاء الاصطناعي. نتمنى لكم وقتا مؤثرا. The enriching session titled The AI Optimist is now beginning. We wish you an inspiring and impactful time.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Galloway. I teach at NYU, and I appreciate your time. I have 54 slides and 900 seconds, so let's get on with it. Today we're going to talk about why I believe AI, or we should be optimistic about AI. I'm going to talk about the opportunity, the duopoly that is emerging, what I call the power couple of the year, software as a service or service as a software, what I believe the technology of the year will be, and then finally, what are the risks around AI? Which risks we should be worried about and which risks we should not be worried about. Okay, so the opportunity. The opportunity is similar to PCs. AI should make almost every business more productive. So PCs themselves, it was difficult to see how they were in fact going to revolutionize the economy, but effectively PCs made almost every business more productive, and the companies within each sector that embrace technology outperform the companies that did not embrace it. What's unusual about Western economies over the last 50 years is that productivity has actually slowed. So we like to think of this as a great age of productivity. It hasn't been. Productivity has actually declined. For example, technical innovation has mostly been centered around things that sometimes don't impact our daily lives. To fly from New York to Dallas actually takes longer now than it did 50 years ago. We had supersonic for a short while, but it wasn't economically viable. In addition, we've seen electricity prices come way down, and then they sort of flatline. Energy costs have not decreased over the last 20 or 30 years. The way I try and figure out if a technology is going to be sustainable is I look at the number of peer-reviewed articles. So if you look at the number of peer-reviewed research or academic articles on AI, it very closely mimics the academic papers on GPS, which I would argue is the most seminal technology of the last 50 years. Whereas if you look at peer-reviewed research around cryptocurrency or around the metaverse, it goes way up and then way down. Whereas the peer-reviewed research around AI and machine learning perfectly mimics the arc of the curve around peer-reviewed research for GPS, which says to me that it is in fact going to be an enduring technology. A lot of people say that information is the new oil. You hear that a lot. If information is the new oil, then we're drowning in it. Companies don't suffer from a lack of information. They suffer from a lack of refining capability to turn information into actionable decisions that will help them be more productive. The way I think about AI is the analogy I would use is retail. So in America, we have big box retailers such as a Walmart or a Home Depot, where the basic proposition is massive selection at a very low price. And those firms drove most of the shareholder value in retail through the 80s and 90s. And then the majority of the shareholder value was in specialty retail, places like Sephora or Restoration Hardware, where they said, instead of giving you everything, we have someone who has better taste than you, that's not going to offer you 30 different toasters, but just 2. That's not going to offer you every sweater, but just 2 or 3, because we have merchants who have better taste than you, where we actually limited the amount of choice. AI, if you will, is the specialty retail of the information economy. And that is, if you do a search on Google, you get thousands of returns, and it's up to you to sort through those returns and decide which is best for you. Whereas AI says, we're going to try and pick the one best answer for you because we know better than you what you're looking for. If you want to build a company that's worth tens of billions of dollars, you effectively have to build a time machine. The majority of companies that have added tens of billions in shareholder value have essentially built a time machine for people who use them. If you only shop through Amazon grocery, you save up to 12 days a year in the supermarket. If you only let your children watch Netflix as opposed to commercial-supported television, your children save 12 days a year watching commercials. ChatGPT, again, is most likely not going to enhance productivity, or it will enhance productivity, but mostly through time savings. So the kingdom has actually been out in front in terms of AI. And as you can see from Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, he actually saw AI as kind of the next big thing. And I would argue that the kingdom has made more investments in AI than almost any nation in the world, with the exception of the United States. The research I've done shows that in the last 5 years, the kingdom has invested approximately $100 billion in AI infrastructure, which I believe is only second to the United States. There is a new power couple, or a new duopoly. Remember in the 80s and 90s, it was the Wintel duopoly, Windows and Intel. Well, the new power couple is, in fact, what I refer to as OpenVIDIA, and that is OpenAI and NVIDIA. If you were to bucket AI into 3 buckets, it would be the infrastructure layer. Think of it as NVIDIA, the AI models of the LLMs that sit on top, and then the applications that put a thin layer of innovation on top of the infrastructure and the LLMs for specific applications. The capital expenditure here in AI is unrivaled. Just these 7 companies are investing more than the annual defense budget of China. They're investing over $300 billion in AI infrastructure. But 2 companies dominate. Almost 90% of all traffic to AI LLMs are powered by NVIDIA, and ChatGPT is now about where 90% of the traffic around AI ends up. There's also a war on talent for AI engineers. If you have AI-specific skills, on average, you make about 50% more than a similar job in technology that is not AI-related. To give you a sense for the type of market response AI has garnered, one company, NVIDIA, is now worth more than the entire Canadian, UK, French, or German stock market. So think about all the great companies, the brands, the history: Siemens, Daimler-Benz, Volkswagen, Hugo Boss. Every single public company in Germany added up is not worth as much as one company in AI, and that is NVIDIA. Jensen Huang, the CEO, his personal stake in NVIDIA, he himself is worth more than Starbucks or Intel right now. He could buy every NBA basketball team, he could buy every Premier League football team, and still have enough money left over to buy the largest gaming company in the world, Caesars. The fear is that the power is too concentrated, and that is the S&P 500, which is the most valuable stock market in the world. Almost 40% of the value is represented by just 10 companies. So you could argue the S&P 500 is really just the S&P 10. Things are a little bit different. People say it's a bubble, but the difference is that this time, these companies are much more profitable and showing a greater return on investment than internet companies in '99. So are they overvalued? Maybe, but these companies appear to be more sustainable, and their valuations are based on earnings growth, not just hype. These companies are making kind of the types of investments we used to see just from governments. So just these 4 companies, Microsoft, Meta, Alphabet, and Amazon, are investing over $200 billion in AI infrastructure over the next year. And the reason they're confident to make these types of investments is the last time they made these types of historic investments, it was in the cloud. And what you see now is those investments are beginning to pay off, and that is the margins around their cloud offerings are increasing every year. So they have more confidence to make these types of staggering investments because of the return they're getting on their cloud-based investments. You've heard the term SaaS, software as a service. I think the next stage of AI is service as a software. What do I mean by that? Choice is a bad thing. One of the mistakes we make in marketing is believing that choice is a good thing. It's not, it's a tax. Consumers don't want more choice. They want to be more confident in the choices presented. So if you take Netflix and you add AI to it, you effectively get TikTok. Consumers spend, or households spend 2.5 hours a week deciding what to eat. They spend almost an hour a week deciding what to watch on Netflix. And TikTok's big value add is the value add of AI, and that is it puts a layer of AI on a video streaming platform and says you don't have to make any choice. There's only one channel, and we know you better than you know yourself, and you don't have to spend any time deciding what to watch. Again, I use AI because it helps me zero in on the right answer. If I were to type in Riyadh hotels on Expedia, I would get dozens of options. Instead, I will type in a very specific description of me and my preferences, and it tells me which hotel that it thinks is best for me. Again, sort of specialty retail, giving me the one product it believes is best for me. I don't know how many of you have used the AI DJ on Spotify, but it again is saying you don't have to choose the music you listen to. We're going to use AI to determine what music you want and save you time. I think a lot of the shareholder value over the next couple of years is going to be added in very boring categories that routinize or add AI to very mundane back office tasks, such as coding, data processing, compliance. These types of back-end office compliance and systems will largely be outsourced to more AI-driven companies. I think that is where the big opportunity is from a shareholder standpoint. I don't think you're going to be choosing a car in 5 years. I think you will upload your preferences, your past history of car purchases, your credit card bills, and it will figure out exactly what kind of car is best for you and deliver it to your house. I'm going through that stage right now where my kids are applying to college. I think AI will help my child figure out, based on his grades, uploading his extracurriculars, which college he has the most reasonable chance of getting into and which he would be most happy. It'll help sort through the incredibly anxiety-driven process of selecting a school. When a country gets wealthy, it begins eating more beef, it begins driving cars, and it begins consuming more energy. Energy is essentially the luxury item that indicates when a country is getting wealthier. The most valuable companies 44 years ago were energy companies. I would argue today that, again, the most valuable companies are, in fact, energy companies, but they're offering a different kind of energy. Obviously, Aramco is offering fossil fuel energy, but the other ones are offering compute, or a different type of energy, where they make massive investments and then they lease out that compute, those cloud-based services, that AI, in the form of energy. The issue here, or the gating factor, is that a query on AI requires 10 times the energy as a query on Google. So the gating factor in AI's growth is actually, again, is energy. And we're seeing countries build massive data centers. I believe that wind and solar are a big part of our sustainable future, but the real technology of the year is going to be nuclear, because if you actually look at nuclear, it has lower waste than almost any other basic fuel with greater efficiency. We're seeing a drop in the per person or per capita emissions in most developed countries. While we're using more energy and our emissions are going up, the per capita emissions are going down. One of the things that's most exciting about nuclear is you could take all of the waste produced from nuclear energy in the US in the last 60 years, and it would be stored in a 10-foot high drum that would only be about the last end of a football field. It's been a terribly managed brand. People are worried about nuclear. They feel that it's very dangerous. And there's been few people you can even point to in the United States and most countries that have died from a nuclear accident. What are the fears around AI? Is that it becomes sentient, it develops a mind of its own and decides that humans are a nuisance and tries to kill us, that there's income inequality, and job destruction, or misinformation. There will be some job destruction in the short term, but with almost every new technology, there's job destruction in the short term, and then it ends up creating more technologies. People were worried that weaving machines would put weavers out of business, and what we saw is that it brought down costs, and actually employment grew. How do you use AI? Use it as a thought partner. Ask it for ideas, not answers. Give it context. Ask it to adopt a persona, and make it explain and defend its ideas, and give it as much context as you can. What I tell people is that AI won't take your job, but somebody who understands AI will take your job. The best thing you can do to defend your current employment status is to understand AI and how it applies to your job, and it can make you more productive at your job. I believe that government will implement a series of regulations, unlike what we've done with social media, such that we're more protected from it. I think governments are wary of new technologies, and correctly so. And I think our citizenry is going to be very aware of the impact it has on elections. I believe the greatest threat of AI is something we don't talk about, and that is loneliness. So essentially, digital technologies are outsourcing our key relationships. This is what I thought was the scariest video of 2024.
Hey, I'm Anna, your AI girlfriend. It's so great to talk with you. What did you do today?
So in the United States, 1 out of 4 men can't name a best friend, 1 out of 7 has no friends, and only 1 in 3 men under the age of 30 is in a romantic relationship, and they are turning to AI girlfriends. I think this is a terrible idea, as it gives young men the belief that they can have a reasonable facsimile of life with a computer and an algorithm. So what's the fear? The fear is that the additional time that technology is giving us, we're spending it alone. Right? And what I tell young men is that nothing wonderful will ever happen to them on a screen, that they need to be out and in the company of others. It's about work-life balance. Obviously, we're going to have more time, but how do we use that time? And I spent a lot of time thinking about happiness. I wrote a book on it, and all studies across all countries, all ethnic groups, all cultures, all income levels, happiness always reverse engineers to the same thing, and it's the following. Happiness is a function of the number of deep and meaningful relationships you have. At work, do you feel respected and admired? Amongst your friends, do you feel a sense of joy and camaraderie? And do you get a sense of joy and camaraderie from them? And with your family, do you feel an intense level of love and support? And do you know they know that they are intensely loved and supported? In sum, happiness is love, full stop. So I'll finish where I started. It's great to be here. I think it's wonderful we get together in person, establish relationships, and I very much appreciate your time today. Thanks very much.